everybody. Welcome to 2022. Here
2022.
we are. And
New
we'd
year.
rather be reading. I'm Jerrica.
I'm Leah. New year, new us. New
Is it
everything.
a new us?
I don't know. Is it? Is it not?
I sure hope I don't
reinvent
stay
yourself
in this
every year?
current state that I'm in right now. The
What?
new
You
me
don't
is
wanna be
9
heavily
months
pregnant?
pregnant.
Don't want to be heavily pregnant for the rest of the year? What?
No, zero chance. I would like to very much be not pregnant in like the next 2 weeks if possible.
2 weeks. All right. Moving fast. We're excited to welcome our first podcast baby.
Yes.
The other ones were born pre-podcast, so they cannot be referred to as podcast babies. This one is the podcast baby, and we're looking forward to welcoming her soon. Very soon.
4 weeks we got left.
4 weeks.
So we will see when she decides to make an entrance. If she is late, she will be a very, very bad baby. And if she is early, she will be
she'll be
very,
grounded
very
for
good.
life.
Grounded for life.
Yeah, I did that to my girl.
You did?
Yeah, she was 5 days late. I grounded her for
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I took away all of her privileges.
Yeah.
Told her she could never have candy. All sorts of things. It's like, you get out now. I'm telling you now.
Don't tell me you don't have a choice.
It's like, you're choosing this. I was like, you're torturing me, baby. God, I hated it. Yeah, my son was a day early, 2 days early actually. So that was all good.
boy.
Good boy.
My
That's
first
good boy.
was 10 days early. She was just excellent. I just love her so
good.
much. Anyways, we will see how much love I give to this child depending on when
Yep.
she decides to be
Yep.
born. Well then.
Sounds right.
And then in the meantime, we read. And when she comes out, I will still continue to read. Because you know what babies do? They sleep and they eat.
They do.
Yeah.
And you don't actually have to, I mean, you can talk to them a bit, but you can actually have a book in your ear most of the time, actually. when
Done.
You're dealing with
Very much
Or
done.
you can hold them with one arm and read with your other hand. It's going to be perfect.
It is
I
going
see
to be
lots. I mean, I watched so much TLC when my babies were little. You know,
All of the home renovations.
all of it. And like the bringing home baby and all the
Okay.
newborn, all the
Yeah.
baby shows and all the wedding shows.
Wedding shows,
and
yeah.
all of the like say yes to the dress and all of that stuff. Like so much
Mm.
TLC. And actually we got TV in our house now, like actual TV.
TV.
Yeah, like we've been
So you're
streaming
going
everything
back
for like
in time.
Yeah, but no, but in the house, in the apartment we live in, they installed like new internet and new TV, and it's included in the
Okay,
fee.
okay.
So I was like,
Done.
it's included, it's being paid for.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need to make this work.
Yeah.
So I had to fix that, and now I have TLC again, and I was like,
No.
this is gonna take all of my
Oh
time. Like this is not gonna
gosh.
be good.
And you know what I heard? That Fixer Upper is going to start to have another new season because they paused it. They stopped in 2018 because they had another baby, and now they're coming back.
Oh my god.
And that Gaines family, I just got to watch. I need to know what they do to these houses.
Oh my god. I don't do, I mean, I do a bit of the home reno shows, but I was more on the like John and Kate +8 and all the people with like tons and tons of kids.
My God.
But mostly to just watch other people in like other people's misery and think about how lucky I was with my one baby. Yeah. And not 8. Which was like, you know, yeah. I did a lot of John and Kate +8. It was
My friend is very, very early pregnant at this stage right now, and I said to her, there's going to be 2, and she says, don't put that voodoo shit on me. And then I said, it's going to be triplets, and she's like, stop it right now. And I was like, it's going to be sextuplets. I just know it is going to be 6.
Honestly, if you have 6 babies, you look like you do in like third month pregnant. You're like,
Exactly.
you're like, whew, about to burst.
It's amazing.
did you
the
see the
skin stretches like
I was
that.
fascinated with John and Kate and like the Octomom. She was around there
Oh, it's
too. My God.
disgusting, yeah.
And like they would plastic wrap the belly because the skin would break. It would be too heavy. Like you couldn't stand up. I was so fascinated by it. Like so fascinated.
Sorry for traumatizing you guys today.
I'm so excited about TLC. Like ridiculously excited about TLC now. Just need to wrestle the remote from my husband so I can watch TV sometimes.
We have the opposite in our house. I have control of the button, and sometimes I'm like, I just don't want to choose.
My husband does that
choose.
occasionally, and then he's like throwing the remote at me, and then I choose something. He's like, ugh, this sucks, and I'm like throwing it back. Or well, I don't want complaints. Just choose if you want to. I don't care. Just put something on. It's just gonna be, from now on, if he throws me the remote, it's gonna be TLC. We all know it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Now we know the future.
Now we know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm coming
over.
over.
I might not be reading so much because I might get stuck when we can say yes to the dress.
I will come over with the baby. And
I will hold your baby and watch TLC. It will be just like the olden days.
Done.
It's great. But with this pod now, we're gonna go into a new kind of format, and we've decided to get organized. Which
what?
I mean, we've always been organized, but now we're gonna be structured.
I know, structured. Yes,
structured. So we're gonna do one book a week instead of what we did last year, and we've already posted on at least our Instagram what book we're doing. And this week we have chosen T.J. Klune's Under the Whispering Door.
Yes.
And the reason we chose this was because it was actually number 2 on Goodreads' best fantasy book of 2021.
The first one was Sarah J. Maas's Silver Flames book.
And we've already read that.
We've already read it.
And this book was actually on my list for quite a while because I found this book in before the summer when we were looking for... because I was reading about this author and he did this book called Into This River I Drown or something like that, which was... it's won all of these awards and stuff. And I really wanted to read that, and then it wasn't on any of our reading apps. So then, and I didn't feel like buying it at the time, I guess. And then I saw that he was releasing a new book this year, and because the Into This River I Drown was so highly acclaimed, I was like, this got to be a good author. I want to read this.
Yeah.
So I put it on my to read list, and then I just never got around to it. But it was released in September, and T.J. Klune is, according to Goodreads, I did read Goodreads and Wikipedia for this. He's a Lambda Literary Award-winning author for Into This River I Drown, and he an exclaimed examiner for an insurance company. So he has a few novels under his belt: the Green Creek series, The House on the Cerulean Sea, and The Extraordinaries.
Okay.
And he's queer. And he believes it's important now more than ever to have an accurate and positive queer representation in stories.
Absolutely. Agreed.
And we agree with this. And this book is published by Tor Books.
Yes.
Yes.
But it says that it's indie.
I think Tor does indie books.
Okay.
We've had some other books that was published by Tor before, actually. But this is published by Tor Books. And the cover is what we're going to be judging first. And I saved it here to see how organized and prepared I am. I know, I'm super proud of myself. And the book is called Under the Whispering Door, and the tagline is "Death is only their beginning."
Oh, so sad again. I'm like melancholy already before we're even talking about it.
And this cover, it's a house in a clearing, and the house looks like someone... A child played Lego with Lego houses and was not very good at stacking. Yeah, it looks like it doesn't look very structurally sound.
No, but it looks cool. It looks like a witch's house.
Yeah.
It looks like something like spooky and funky goes on in there.
I get a little bit of like the Russian Baba Yaga like feel when I see this house.
Because it's in the woods.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look structurally sound.
Yeah.
And it looks like somebody who maybe want to eat you lives there.
Yeah, potentially. Potentially. But I got Baba Yaga feels from looking at this cover, and I was a bit surprised, honestly, that Baba Yaga was not in this when I started reading it, because for some reason I had gotten into my head that it would be Baba Yaga related. It was not. Right. It is instead about this guy, Wallace Price. And he's a partner at a legal firm. He's very cold and harsh. He enjoys very much to fire people, particularly for minor mistakes. Anything that's not... He sees his firm as a machine, and any cog in this machine that's not like perfect and runs smoothly gums up the whole thing, and he needs to keep it nice and smooth. So we start off with Wallace Price firing a person after she basically tells him that her husband lost his job, her daughter gets a scholarship through the firm, things are not so well for her, she's very sad, she's very overwhelmed, and then he's like, ugh, I have to listen to her cry, you're fired. Pick up your stuff and leave. And she's like, so mean. And And then right after that, he basically goes into work on a Sunday and gets a heart attack and dies.
Yeah.
And apparently when you die, you wear whatever clothes you were wearing. And because he went into work on a Sunday, he's wearing sweatpants, a band t-shirt and flip-flops, which is not what he usually wears. He's usually dresses very smartly. And then we find him again at his own funeral, which he believes is going to be like this grand affair of all the people that he's met in his life and people saying nice things about it. In reality, there's 6 people there, one whom he doesn't even know, and no one's saying anything nice about him. They're all saying very mean things about him, basically. And this person he doesn't know is this little girl. I mean, she's not a little girl, she's a young woman, and she's smartly dressed, which Wallace very much approves of. She has a statement tie. And it turns out that she's the only one there who can see him because she is his reaper. Yes, and it's her first time reaping on her own, which she tells him many times, and he's not sure about this because Wallace Price likes people who knows what they're doing. He's not very keen on newbies. Newbies make mistakes. And she takes him to Karen's Crossing, which is this house that looks like it's structurally unsound, and is also a tea shop.
Yes.
And in there he meets Hugo, the ferryman. But before he meets Hugo, he's been told about Hugo, the ferryman. He runs into Hugo's grandfather Nelson, who pretends to be Hugo and makes Wallace do a little dance. Basically because Wallace says, I should not be dead. This has been a mistake. I want to be alive. And Nelson's like, yeah, we can make that happen if you stand on one leg and dance around and, flap your hands about and say, I want to live. I want to live. Doesn't really work like that. There's also a dead dog called Apollo.
Yeah, I love this dog.
Yes. And when he's at Karen's Crossing, he gets to talk to Hugo, who explains to him what's going to happen and that there's a door that he is supposed to go through when he's ready for it, but he doesn't have to go until he's ready. But Wallace is determined that this is a mistake and he should definitely be alive because he has work to do. Not, I have people who loves me and who misses me and I need to be with my family. It's really, priorities. I have, a deposition that I have to prepare. So he tries to run. And he makes it all the way to this convenience store where his skin starts flaking off. Yeah, floating away. It's not great. Wallace doesn't like this, so he allows himself to be taken back to Karen's Crossing. But on the way, they run into this monstrous-looking ghost with black teeth who's groaning at him, and that's Cameron. He's a husk. Yeah. He has a hook in his chest, Wallace, that attaches him to Hugo as the ferryman. So after this little runaway episode, Wallace kind of starts settling in a little bit at the tea shop. Nelson teaches him how to be a better ghost by, touching chairs, being able to sit down on things because otherwise it just falls through them and so on and so forth. He learns to unexpect things. He also learns to help out with the tea shop with making the scones and stuff, and Hugo in the garden, they grow their own tea leaves, and he has these long conversations with Hugo every night out on the deck where they talk about life and they talk about all sorts of things, and they develop a friendship, and he makes friends with Nelson as well, and May and Apollo, and gradually he's turning better. He's caring more. And there's a beautiful romance aspect, I think, with Hugo. It's so nice the way that romance is blossoming. And it's shown in all these little ways. I really like it. Like when Wallace is learning how to change his outfit and he ends up in a bikini.
Yeah, that was a hilarious bikini.
And then the second time he learns to change, he's practicing to change his outfit, and he ends up in just these little tight underwear and thigh-high leather boots, and Hugo really likes it. And his voice gets all gruff. It's little things like that. It's very nice. And through their conversation, just the trust that they're building by talking to each other and sharing stories. And then when things are kind of going smoothly and Wallace feels like he's found his place there at Karen's Crossing, another spirit gets assigned to Hugo, and this is Alan. And when he arrives, he is angry, like very, very angry. And he's a homicide victim, and this anger that he feels at his life being taken from him just won't allow him to settle in at Karen's Crossing, and he won't allow him to go through the door. So he fights them, teeth and nails in everything they do. He doesn't listen. He tries to run away, just like Wallace did. And this is where we really see Wallace's change in a way, because even though it makes him a little bit of a hypocrite, he's like, you can't act this way. These people are nice to you. What are you doing? Why are you running away? But Alan doesn't listen. He's still very angry, and there's this woman that comes in every day almost, Nancy, and she lost her daughter. Her daughter was sick, and for some Nancy has like this opening towards spirits, so she can sense them in a way. So she made her way to Karen's Crossing, thinking that they know where her daughter is. Yeah. And then her daughter had been forced through the door by the manager. We find this out. And every time Nancy comes in, Hugo makes her a pot of tea, and he just sits with her because she's angry, but she's not ready to talk to him yet. So he sits and he gives her time. And then Alan sees this, and he realizes that Nancy can hear him a little bit if he screams her name. So he makes this big scene with Nancy, and then the manager comes in, and he's basically grabs a hold of Alan and he forces him through the door. And then he tells Wallace that he has a week. He can't stay any longer. He's been there for like a couple of months, I think, at this point, like 7 weeks or so. He can't stay there any longer. It's time for him to move through. He's only allowed Nelson and Apollo to stay because Nelson is Hugo's grandfather, and he allows him to stay and look after Hugo. And he only allowed Apollo because Hugo suffers from panic attacks, and Apollo helps him with these. But he's not going to let Karen's Crossing become like this spirits that won't pass on to the next stage hangout point spot where he just lets anyone stay there. And Wallace is very upset and angry at this, and he doesn't tell anyone, but then Hugo forces it out of him. And he's pleading for the manager to show up so he can get him to change his mind, but the manager won't show up. And tells the story of, God, like this book, the beginning, it's a little bit slow.
All of this stuff basically that you just said is still the beginning.
Yeah. Then when they start talking about the story, when they tell the story of what happened to Leah and what happened with Nancy, oh my God, I was crying. I was crying when they told us about May's story and how she was never hugged. And then it's all of these things like Wallace and Hugo can't touch each other because Hugo is the ferryman and Wallace is a spirit and he's dead, he's a ghost. So they can't touch each other. May can touch him because she's the Reaper, so she can touch both humans and ghosts. And Nelson can touch him because ghosts can touch ghosts.
Yeah.
But Hugo and Wallace have fallen in love, but they can't touch each other. And they use May all the time to be like, not all the time, but occasionally to be like, I need you to hug him for me because I really want to hug him and I can't do it. And it's all the feels, all of them. And then we learn more about this bad ghost, Cameron, this husk. And he was once like Wallace, but he ran away. And when you run away, you get emptied out of all that's human in you. And you become like this empty shell. And that's why they call them husks. And basically you're going to stay like that forever. But when he touches Wallace, Wallace sees like all these glimpses of his life. And he sees the love that Cameron had for his partner, Zach. And when Zach died, oh my God, I cried so much. It was ridiculous. Like I could not. It was heart-wrenching and beautiful and all of it. And then through this touch where Wallace sees all of these glimpses, he finds out that what they've been told, what Hugo's been told about husks is just not true. Yeah. And they come up with this plan of helping all the husks.
So they go to the manager about it.
Well, the manager comes back when it's been the week that Wallace has, and then they basically present their idea to him.
Mm-hmm.
And Wallace is at this point, he's ready to like, well, he's already helped Cameron, right? Because he took his own hook out of his... Because Wallace helps Cameron by taking the hook out of his own chest and putting it into Cameron's. Yeah. And then he almost floats off. And there's a picture, if you Google this, there's a picture of this. And it's amazing, and I love it so much.
But they have a dog leash.
They have a dog leash that holds him, and they move him from room to room, and he's just kind of bobbing like a human balloon. Just an amazing visual. And then Cameron can finally go through the door.
Yeah.
And see Zach again.
So they prove to the manager that they can fix these husks and have them pass over through the door being to the other side, of course.
Yeah, to what's next.
Yeah, what's next? The other side. And then the manager said yes.
The manager is very interesting, though. He's like this little kid.
Boy, he's
like a stag that turns into a boy, which has flowers in his hair that he eats to stay human.
And he gives other people flowers too. Yeah. So then the manager talks to somebody on the other side of the door, which we don't know and we can't hear.
Feels like he's talking to the door.
Something like that. And that something is talking back to him and giving him his opinion. And decides that he's going to allow Wallace one of these flowers that allows him to become human and also turns him into a reaper so he could have the task of fixing these husks spirits.
Yeah. Together with Wallace. No, together with Hugo and May.
Yeah.
So they get this new job. So Wallace gets his new chance, and I love this. I mean, it was... I could kind of see it coming. I didn't think he was going to become human or a reaper. I thought he was just going to be allowed to stay. But he, when he becomes a reaper and he gets this task of, he can finally touch Hugo, and it's very lovely. The whole scene there of them getting to be together and them getting to stay, but then leads into this very sad thing because Hugo has had the job as a reaper since he was about 25, I believe.
When his parents died,
Yeah, I'm not sure how old they are. I tried. I don't know if I missed it in the beginning, but I wasn't sure.
Nelson talks to him, Wilson, and says, Nelson says, "I'm an old man," and then Wilson says,
Wallace.
And then Wallace says, "I'm not that young," and he's like, "I can see it in the creases in your eyes," so I assume that he's around 40. And in the pictures that they have online also, it puts them around that age.
Yeah, because I figured he would be around 40 as well, because he's also a partner at the law firm. Yeah. He's worked for a while, and he's been married and
but I don't think they actually put a number on it.
No, I wasn't sure, because they also say that Hugo looks young, but he says that he named it when he was younger, Karen's Crossing. And I'm not sure, but I'm guessing around 40 probably. Late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. And when Hugo got this job, and his grandfather was still alive when he got the job, I guess. Yeah. But then when he died, he decided to stay because he needed to support Hugo. Yeah. But he says early on that he was going to stay until he felt that Hugo had it, like he got it. And then when Wallace gets to become a reaper and he gets to stay, and May is there, then Nelson and Apollo also go through the door. And this was honestly like the saddest
that the dog went to.
Oh no, but Nelson, oh my god, like when he becomes young and Wallace figures out that he's gonna leave, I lost my grandfather a year ago. It's a year ago, a couple of days ago actually. So it's been very much on my mind this past week, and reading this when the grandfather goes through, I was dying. That's how much I was crying. I was like a puddle of tears on the freaking floor. It was ridiculous. It was so good and heartbreaking and beautiful. It made me feel like maybe this is okay. It was sad, but beautiful sad. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It was meaningful. Mm-hmm. It was after or during reading this book, I had some questions about, like, you know, the category of it and stuff. And I saw that the author had written, or somebody said that the author had written, I don't know if this is a fact, that he had written this while trying to make sense of the death of a friend who died from coronavirus. And so the fact that this is like helping you make sense or connecting to your grandfather passing away too is exactly what he was writing for. Like for him and for all other readers to help make sense of death and life and meaning and acceptance of it.
Because it's so beautiful the way they describe the spirits when they go through the door, like the joy that they get on their face, and like apparently they see all of their loved ones are there waiting for them. And they get to just let go of all the hurt and pain and just be happy, and it's just light and love. And it was just, I was like, yes, please let it be like this. Like, please let it. Because I needed that. I needed to think about it like that, and not just as gone and something that's I'm missing, and someone that I'm missing, and something that I wish he was alive. I wish both my grandparents were alive. But thinking about them being somewhere else and being happy and full of light and love, it makes it a little bit easier. I
like that this book also doesn't go into some fantastical explanation of what is on the other side of the door either, just that it is something else. And that we have to accept the life that we had here in order to move on, and who we are in order to move on past through it.
Yeah, and that you get time, and that the ferryman's job is just to help you make sense of where you are and where you're going.
Yeah.
I like that too, that the ferryman is a person, and as well the reaper. And they keep talking about May being new, but she's very good at what she does.
Have you ever
very
watched...
understanding.
I like May a lot too.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched the TV show called Dead to Me?
I don't think so.
Dead Like Me?
It feels like it rings a bell, but I don't know.
It was a while back, and I want to say before I moved here, and I think that it's Canadian, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, it's called Dead Like Me, and it has 2 seasons, and I'm not sure what year it came out, but anyways, not recently, let's say. And these are the characters' jobs that they have in this book as well. She dies by a toilet falling out of a building landing on her when she's a teenager.
Oh,
and she becomes a reaper, and she joins other people who are these like middlemen that help spirits move on. So you deal with like a new death each episode basically, and there's dogs and stuff like that in it as well, and it's a very cool way of depicting that sort of middle ground between life and death, and I liked it a lot, and that's why I like this book too. I thought of May as this young girl main character, because May is young and tiny.
But I kind of like that they were human, and that they were going to have this job, while they're alive. And
this
it's
is
just, she's...
she becomes alive to become a reaper.
She has a connection, and she's seen things, like she's seen ghosts. So she's kind of like a medium, and that's why she's chosen for the role, because she can see both worlds. Kind of.
And Desdemona is this like clairvoyant who thinks that she knows everything, and I love that how they depict her, because in our day and age now, there's a lot of people who claim to have a connection to the other side. And like this Desdemona character in the book, she also talks very seriously about how, to all of the people she meets at the tea shop and everywhere else, that she knows exactly what's happening, and she can communicate with the dead and blah, blah, blah. And the people on this middle ground in the tea shop, they know that she can a little bit, but not all the way. And she makes a lot of stuff up. But at the same time, there is like a little bit of intuition that she has.
Yeah, she has some sense of that.
Some sense.
Something's going on.
And I think that that's pretty accurate. Like, I would say that's how I feel about these mediums and things like that as well. Like, there might be a little tether there, or some intuition there.
Sensitivity to
it. And that could probably be like developed to something bigger if they didn't let their ego get in the way or to be about financial gain and stuff like that.
But Desdemona, she's such of our time, you know, with the YouTube channel and her followers and the way she's always looking at the camera and the way she dresses. And the damage she did. I like that too, that they talk about Desdemona, how Nancy turned to her and she basically told her lots of stuff that wasn't true. And she told her she spoke to spirits and they told her stuff that wasn't actually real and whatnot. And how Nancy trusts her more than she trusts Hugo, because Hugo won't talk to her about this.
Yeah.
Because he cannot, really. But he actually knows what happened. And the little girl's name is Leah, so I was very connected to her, of course. And then I have my final note on this is literally the manager was ... I was gonna describe him, but then I just couldn't come up with words. He was he just was. He was a bureaucrat and not human, and this was very much what they talked about too, that because he wasn't human, he couldn't understand the human experience, and that's why he dismissed the husks and so on and so forth, because he didn't understand what it was like to be human. All right, so following our new structure, we're now going into Leah's continuity corner. And I didn't really find any continuity errors because I was listening to it, and I find continuity way more when I'm reading it, unless it's like glaringly obvious continuity stuff, like in the Princess for Holidays, whatever, that had some glaring continuity things that could be easily picked up while listening. But one thing that did strike me a little bit, and it's more of the world building, is they explain that there's more than one Reaper and there's more than one ferryman, but the fact that these spirits could stay with them for up to like a week or two, and I mean in Wallace's case like very long, but usually like a week or so. I just feel like with the amount of people that die every day, there would have to be so very many ferrymen and Reapers.
Yeah. And I also thought like, wow, they're having very few people that they talk about in this book. But I think it's probably because it's like location wise.
But he wasn't supposed to be there. He was supposed to be in the city, but he was sent there for some reason, like to that.
There was too many in the city.
I don't know, but there's got to be more than one. There's got to be so many ferrymen. If you think about how many people die in a city, think about New York City. Like how many freaking ferrymen and reapers would you need to have for a city like that?
But the manager says that there's many because he talks about how May's a really good Reaper, one of the best that he's seen, and that there's so many Reapers.
Oh, I believe that. For me, just to wrap my mind about the sheer quantity of ferryman and Reaper you would need to have this job, like it's a lot. Yeah. But it wasn't a continuity thing. It was more of a wow, so many. Did you have anything as far as love triangles goes?
When I thought about it, I was like, there could have maybe been something between Cameron and Wallace and Hugo, but they're all dead / alive / Cameron was in love with...
But Wallace was also bisexual, so we could have had a Wallace and May situation.
I know, but the May is so little like a girl, so it's like, nah. So... I passed on the love triangle.
Passed on the love triangle. So you're saying this book could not have been improved by a love triangle?
I mean, maybe.
When you put it like that.
When you put it like that. Yes, very much so. Especially if we're going into that queer section. You know how much I love a love triangle and how much I love 3-person relationships.
Fair enough.
In books.
In books. All right, yeah. There were some trigger warnings for this book. Yeah. It deals with death, murder, and suicide. So if you have a sensitivity, or if you're like me and have recently lost your grandfather or someone you love, I'm telling you, all of the bring tissues, people. You're gonna need them, all of the tissues. Warning. So would you recommend this book?
Yeah, of course. And we were talking about this a lot as well because was number 2 in fantasy section, and I really don't think that this is a fantasy book, and I am saying that in a positive way because I would recommend this to so many more people that I know that don't like to read fantasy novels, because the ferryman, he has a fancy name to it, and the manager maybe has a fancy name, but the Happy Place, that television series, or like the Sixth Sense movie, like I wouldn't call those fantasies either. And I would recommend both of those to people as well. So I would equally recommend this book to people who both like fantasy and just simple fiction.
I would also recommend this book. I think I would honestly recommend this book to like every person I meet and will meet. So if you meet me, you will probably get this book recommended to you. It's gonna happen. I loved it so much. But saying that, going into this, we had this conversation a little bit by text message earlier, and I would still say that I think it belongs in fantasy because there are supernatural elements to this book, particularly around the manager and you know, if you
the manager is maybe like this in between God's spirit. I don't know. But fantasy for me is something that's like more creatively made up.
But he's also a stag that turns into a little boy that has flowers growing from his hair that he eats.
Have flowers
I'm just saying, these. If I were to, let's say, ask my mother to read this, I would have lost her immediately. Come like Reaper, Ferryman, and the manager, she would have been like, nope, can't do it. Though? Like, not working
because
for me.
Throughout the book, there was nothing to me that was like fantastical.
No, but she, just the fact that there's ghosts, she wouldn't like this. It just would not like this is not real. So therefore it is fantasy. And then she tends to be my, is this fantasy or not? Will she read it or not? You know, kind of thing. And if these are...
That's pretty all the way left and all the way right.
Which is probably why this book ends up in fantasy, because it has fantastical elements to it. Which I think makes it better. Because I like fantasy.
I mean, the tea house was weird, and yes, there was ghosts, and this ferryman was a human, so he's not a fantasy character.
But he's a human who has a physical glowing tether to ghosts.
But don't you think that maybe exists? Don't you think that people,
it might be, but
like some mediums, help other spirits go to the other side? I think that's actually happening now.
Yeah, but I think it's because we don't know for sure. It still falls under fantasy.
But is fantasy the right word? I think that's what I'm stuck on, because I think fantasy is more...
Because fiction is something that can be possibly happening in our real world with real things that are made up a story about, right?
Yeah.
Whereas fantasy has elements that cannot be proven.
And there's no other category?
Not really, no. I don't think so.
I wonder if there's something else that's more in between.
I think Jerrica needs a new genre here.
Yeah,
she's gonna make up a new one. So stay tuned.
The wheels are turning in my brain.
This is gonna be like Fiction Plus.
Fiction Plus. No, but this is such a moving book. Not that fantasy can't be moving, but this is so much more real life than any fantasy novel that I have ever read. So there's something
It's real life fantasy.
No, it's not. It's not fantasy at all. But I wonder what Sixth Sense was, because Sixth Sense got turned into a book after M. Night Shyamalan made the movie.
But that would be a fantasy then.
And I looked at the category and it didn't say fantasy, but I didn't actually know what the category was. And if The Good Place was a book, there's a lot of magic in that, so that probably goes into fantasy. But there's something else that's there. There's got to be something else that makes people who don't like fantasy still want to read this book. That's my point.
Fair enough. Well, I'd say Sixth Sense genres is ghost stories, suspense, supernatural fiction, paranormal fiction.
There we go. Paranormal fiction. Because paranormal is ghosty stuff.
Yeah, but you also have a god who's a stag and a boy. I think this and the house and stuff, it's not...
They don't do anything fantasy.
But it's not like paranormal, I would say. It's more like ghost haunting.
He haunts. Remember when Delson was like, hey, look at this. We could do haunty stuff.
And the first night he's there and he's like, we don't have to sleep. And then he stands outside of the room and there's ghost sounds. Yeah, no, this book was funny. I liked it. It was sad and funny and touching and lovely and adorable. And I love it so much. And you should read it if you haven't already. Go read it now.
Okay.
So next week we are reading a different book. Which is, I will tell you very soon what it is. It also won something, right? Did it? Was it like the top book in something?
It was the number one in YA.
In YA fiction. So there it was.
Yeah.
And I know I saved it somewhere. Here it is. Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Bully. That's what we're reading next. So, tune in next week and find out all about this new book.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
We'd Rather Be Reading is an original podcast by Jerrica and Leah Sanford. The music for The Penguins, written and performed by David Allred from the album The Transition, courtesy of Erased Tapes. Please check him out on Spotify and check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at We'd Rather Be Reading and on Twitter at We'd Rather Read. You can also email us at we'dratherbereadingthepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.